Hi everyone! Today I am working on a page about my first ski lesson. I decided last December that I was going to go learn how to ski. And I decided that the best way to do it was obviously take lessons. I've tried skiing before. My boyfriend has taken me, and he's a great skier, but I think having a professional teacher was probably the better way to go. And he suggested that. So I did take some photos, one with my instructor on my first day, and then a group photo with my class on my second day. And I wanted to scrapbook this because it was a really big accomplishment for me. And the accomplishment was not specifically learning how to ski, but that I didn't break any bones, because I have heard of horror stories and I was super nervous about breaking something. So that was my celebration. For this page, I decided to use the blue background, which always reminds me of snow and ice. And I chose this black and white pattern paper that had triangles on it. It was reminding me of the mountains. And that is why I ended up cutting out these mountain-shaped pieces, because I wanted to have this in the background, since that's what I was on. I was on Okemo Mountain, which is this really nice die cut I had gotten from a Vermont scrapbook store. They had some of these really cute die cuts, and I bought this at one point, and this was the layout I decided to use it on. After I had cut out this, mountain-shaped pattern paper, I didn't like how the bottom was kind of empty. I wasn't really sure how it was going to work out. So I ended up coming back in and trimming a sheet off for the bottom portion of my page. And that felt a lot fuller because I didn't want it to be blue underneath the mountain. It just didn't make sense to me. I want the blue to represent the sky and this black and white triangle pattern paper to represent like the ground. So what I did end up doing is taking some pop dots to lift these mountains off the page, because whenever I think of mountains, I think of layering, how some are closer, some are further, and I do use the pop dots to create some dimension on the page for these triangle mountains. After I had glued my bottom piece down, I realized I didn't quite like the horizontal line right behind my mountains. So I decided to actually cut some more triangles in that piece and make it seem like they're further back behind the two mountains I have on the top piece. And this is the part where I start realizing that I probably did a couple things backwards. I realized I wanted to add more mountains to that back piece. So I had already adhered my top layer down. So I had a little bit of difficulty cutting the layer underneath it. But in the end, it worked out really well in my opinion. And I was able to create some more triangles in the background. I knew one of my photos were going to cover up that horizontal section, so I just needed a couple more triangles. Not too many. I decided to put my first lesson photo on the left and then my second lesson photo on the right. And as for my die cut, I didn't want to put it over the black and white pattern sheeted paper, so I liked how it was over the blue and it was very legible on top of the blue. And I decided to just keep the die cut up in the top, so it's kind of like mountains further in the back. And because the surface area to glue this was so small, I had to use my fine line applicator to add just a little bit of glue for me to adhere it to the page. And then I saw that gap between my front two mountains, and I didn't like how it was blank, so I cut off a piece of the pattern paper and decided to just add one more mountain right behind there in the background. I decided to pull out some Dear Lizzie chipboard stickers. There were a couple of sentiments that I really liked. The first one was the banner that says, "Some things take time," and that reminded me of how I was constantly pushing myself to be better when I was taking my lesson, and it just doesn't work that way when you're learning a new skill. So I wanted to remind myself that things take time. And then there was this other chipboard one that says "Dream Big," and I think this was a big dream of mine since I'm not very athletic, and it was something new that I was trying. So it was something that I was considering to be a big obstacle. And then the last piece I decided to use was this hexagon, gold hexagon that said "Yay." And the yay, like I mentioned earlier, was for me surviving my 2 lessons and not getting injured in the process. For my title, I did want to use the die cut as part of my title, but more importantly, the title I wanted was exactly what this picture shows, and it was my first ski lesson. So I took out the light blue foil thickers and spelled out "first ski lesson." Originally, I had the first in the middle of the page, but I realized I didn't have enough room for ski lesson, so I moved the first two on top of my right photo, right where the big triangle is. Now to add some more embellishments, I decided to pull this camera pattern sheet of paper out from my stash. I used this sheet in one of my previous kits, and I was saving it because I wanted to use these little cameras for other layouts. And I ended up cutting 3 up for this layout, and I added one to the left side of my left photo, another one by the chipboard "Yay," and then the third one is above my right photo in the upper right hand corner. I also pulled out my hashtag washi tape and used the different sentiments on there. My first one is a hashtag whoops. I used one that also said hashtag this, and then another one that was hashtag OOTD, which means outfit of the day. And my ski outfit is definitely not a typical outfit I put on. I also realized I wanted to add more journaling. I did add some to the bottom of the page with the border strip I had cut off from my background blue cardstock. I wrote, "I have never taken ski lessons before, so I thought I'd give it a try. I wanted to learn, and I learned a lot in 2 days." But I realized I didn't have enough room to write everything I wanted to say about this layout. So I ended up cutting a portion of my left photo off to create some more room for journaling, and I decided to journal on the border outline of my page. As you can see, I just went around my photos, the mountains, the stickers, and then along the edge of my page. I started off saying, "On my first day, I was in the red beginners group. I was so scared and just was trying to not fall. When that day was over, I moved on to a higher level, yellow. I skipped over orange. I thought the instructor made a mistake, but she said I was ready to make turns. My second day was even scarier. Everyone was super skilled. I was trying super hard to stay up with the class. I did manage to learn how to turn and even survived going down the mountain. Definitely a big difference from day 1. I was super happy I didn't break any bones. Yay." I really liked how my journaling didn't interfere with the rest of the page layout. I'm adding the date of my lessons, and that's pretty much my page. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below, and I hope you have a crafty day.